Good morning, everyone. How's your day? Let us begin our lesson by simple prayer. Dear God, thank you for looking after our school. Thank you that you love each and every one of us here. Help us to learn, play, and share together so that the wonderful worlds you have made becomes more beautiful every day. Amen. I have some reminders. This video lesson was created just for all of you class so you may still continue to study in your home despite of the restrictions brought about by the pandemic. You may watch this video lesson anytime you want while working, doing household chores, even if you're sick. Just send a private message if you have some difficulties about the lesson so that I can help you. What are the objectives of our lesson? At the end of the lesson, you should be able to learn the role of genes to heredity, how are traits passed on to the next generation, what are the Mendelian pattern of inheritance, and what are the practical applications of our knowledge of genes. Are you ready to start our lesson for today? Let us start. The wide range of skin colors and facial features observed in humans is a result of genetic variation. Genes are like the story, and DNA is the language that the story is written in. Let's find out if this statement is true. We have 4 types of hereditary characters. Any idea what are the 4 types of hereditary characters? Yes? Correct. Number 1 is morphological characters. What is morphological characters? It is referred to the structure or form such as shape, the length, color of body parts. Now, look at the slides. I have here some examples of the shape of hairlines. What have you noticed about the 2 pictures? Very good. The left picture has a widow pig's hairline, while the other has a straight hairline. Okay, another example are the picture of the chin. The one in the left is the chin with a cleft, and at the right corner is a chin without a cleft. Okay. Now, what is the second type of hereditary character? Anybody? Very good. It's physiological characters. What is physiological characters? Those that refer to the functions of parts such as rolling of the tongue, blood clotting, color vision, bent little finger, or hitchhiker's thumb. So these are the examples that you can see in our slides. Behavioral characters. What is behavioral characters? These are extremely directed activities in response to stimuli. Instincts such as crying and thumb sucking in babies. So what is the number 4 characters? we have the sexual characters, those associated with being male or female, such as internal and external genitalia, the hair growth in puberty, change in voice quality of males, fat deposition in the breast and hips of female. So as you notice, during the adolescent period, so yung mga lalaki nagkakaroon ng Adam's apple, and then yung mga girls, 'di ba? Yun, lumalaki yung mga breast, tapos medyo yun, lumalaki yung mga hips, lalo na kapag ka nagkakaroon ng menstruation. So these are example of sexual characters. Based on the 4 types of characters, what are the traits that you inherit from your parents? Do you look like your parents? Anybody? In what features you look the same? Okay, look at yourself in the mirror. From whom do you inherit your particular characteristics like your height, your build, your eyes, your nose, and your skin color? Look at yourself in the mirror, class. Now, let us group yourself into 3. Analyze yourself further. From whom do you inherit the following? Your hobbies or interests, your talents and capabilities, and your mannerisms. I will give you 5 minutes. Time's up. Let us check your work. Very good. Does it mean that the traits can be passed on from one generation to the next generation? When you look at your parents, you can see features that you share with them, such as the shape of the eye, the presence of dimples, or even the hand you use when you write. What must be responsible for all these things? The sharing of features can be explained by heredity, where traits are passed on from parents to offspring. But what is heredity? Heredity is the sum of all biological processes transmitted from parents to their offspring. Now, what is traits? A trait is a noticeable feature or quality in a person. Each of us has a different combination of traits that make us unique. Traits are passed from generation to generation. We inherit traits from one parent and pass them to our children. Now, how about genetics? The genetics is the study of genes and heredity. Correct. It is a branch of biology that deals with characteristics that are inherited from one generation to the next. It is the study of genes. Now, what do you think is the factor that controls the appearance of a trait? Very good. It's a genes. Now, what is a genes? Correct. The gene is considered the basic unit of inheritance. Genes are passed from parents to offspring and contain the information needed to specify physical and biological traits. Genes occur in pairs called alleles, which is represented by letters. So it can be small letter or a big letters. Now, let us see or let us look at the slides. As you notice, our body is made up of cells. Okay, so we know that cell is the basic unit of life. So, when we talk about cell, cell is composed or the chromosomes is composed of cell. When the chromosomes are grouped together, it can form on what we call the DNA. And when this DNA are grouped together, it will be what we call genes. Let us review what is chromosomes. Chromosomes are structures within cells that contain a person's genes. Genes are contained in chromosomes which are in the cell nucleus. Now, what are the parts of the chromosomes? The parts of chromosomes are the homologous chromosomes, the centromere, the kinetochore, the synaptodermal complex, and the sister chromatids. Human chromosomes have 23 pairs. So in total, we have 46 chromosomes in our body. 22 pairs of autosomes and 1 pair of sex chromosomes. Now, how is the behavior of the chromosomes during meiosis related to heredity? In order to answer this question, we must first look back at the experiments of Gregor Mendel. The results of his garden experiments laid down the foundation of modern genetics. Who do you think is Gregor Mendel? Okay, let us find out. Gregor Mendel was an Austrian scientist, a teacher, and an Augustinian prelate. He is an Austrian monk born in what is now Czech Republic in 1822. He is a son of a peasant farmer, studied theology, and was ordained priest at St. Augustine. Went to the University of Vienna, where he studied botany and learned the scientific method. Worked with pure lines of peace for 8 years. Now, what is his contribution in genetics? Mendel developed principles of dominance. So, ano daw yung dominance? It is one form of hereditary trait. Dominates or prevents the appearance of the recessive trait. Number 2 is the segregation, splitting of chromosomes during meiosis. And number 3 is the recombination, combining chromosomes from both the sperm and egg, or what we call the fertilization. Next is the independent assortment. So, independent segregation of genes during the formation of gametes. Now, what was the experiment conducted by Mendel? Anybody? Okay, he conducted or used the pea plants to study the inheritance of traits. Now, why did he choose pea plants in his experiments? Anybody? Correct. He chose peas because they had been used for similar studies. And what are the reasons? It is easy to grow and can be sown each year. Pea plants are inexpensive. Reproduction is easy to control. Produce many offspring. Has contrasting characteristics. So, what are these contrasting characteristics? So, it includes seeds, if it is round or wrinkled. The seed color, if it is yellow or green. Next is the height, if it is tall or short. And the flowers, if it is white or purple. And the pod color, if it is yellow or green. So, these contrasting characteristics are the 7 characteristics of pea plants looked or studied by Gregor Mendel. Prior to Mendel, heredity was regarded as a blending process, and the offsprings were essentially a dilution of the different parental characteristics. Now, how did Mendel conducted the experiment on peas? Very good. By selectively cross-pollinate the peas with one another. He was interested in investigating how individual traits were inherited. He wanted to find out whether both parents contributed equally to the traits of the offspring. He also wanted to know if the traits present in the offspring were produced by the blending of the traits of the parents. Mendel chose the garden pea, or what we call the Pisum sativum, for his experiments. Before he started his experiments, Mendel first produced pure breeding plants. Mendel allowed his pea plants to self-pollinate for many generations until all the offsprings had the same futures as the parents generation after generation. When he has pure breeding plants, Mendel began cross-pollinating peas with contrasting traits. The pure breeding peas constituted the parental or the P1 generation. All offspring of these crosses resembled one another. Okay, for example, when he crossed the pea plants that produce round seeds with pea plants that produce wrinkled seeds, all the offspring had round seed. The offspring of the parental cross are called the first filial or F1 generation. Now, what do we mean by hybrids? An offspring of two animals or plants of different subspecies. Breeds, varieties, species. The F1 generation are also called hybrids. Now, Mendel was the first biologist to use mathematics to explain his results quantitatively. Mendel predicted the concept of genes, that genes occur in pairs, that one gene of each pair is present in the gametes. In genetics, what are the two factors mentioned by Mendel? Have you noticed? Okay, the recessive and the dominant traits. In genetic, the two factors mentioned by Mendel are called letter A. It begins with letter A. Okay, correct. Alleles. These alleles or alleles could be dominant or recessive, alternate forms of a gene. Now, what are alleles or alleles? Alleles are one or more version of a gene which represented by letters, a pair of factors that control the appearance of a particular trait. Now, what is the difference between dominant and recessive alleles? Correct. A dominant allele produces a dominant phenotype in individuals who have one copy of the allele, which can come from just one parent. Dominant is a trait that is always expressed whenever present. It is represented by capital letters. So, pwede kayo mag-assign kahit anong letter. Basta ang pinag-uusapan, pag sinabing dominant, it is represented by capital letter. So, pag sinabi nating dominant, yan yung mga nakikita nyo sa physical features nyo. Diba? So, halimbawa, sino yung mas maputi? Nanay at tatay nyo. Ngayon, kung ang nakuha nyo ay mas maputi kayo, ibig sabihin, nakuha nyo yung kung sino yung mas maputi sa parents nyo o ang nanalaytay sa dugo nyo ay yung dominant traits na yon. Okay, ano naman yung tinatawag natin na recessive traits? Recessive trait is a trait that is weak or unexpressed. It is represented by small letter. Genotype refers to the genetic composition of the organisms. So we have two types of genotype, the homozygous and the heterozygous. So what is the difference between the two? When we say homozygous, two alleles that are the same. So an example is two dominant represented by capital letter B or small letter b. Then the heterozygous, two different alleles. So we have the example, capital B, yung isa ay dominant at yung isa ay recessive. So ang tawag doon ay heterozygous. So ano naman yung tinatawag natin na phenotype? So phenotype is the physical appearance or feature of the person. So it is an observable characteristic. So ang example, brown eyes, tall, short, gray hair, yung nakikita natin na panlabas, yun ang tinatawag natin na phenotype. Okay, what is generation? Generation is a group of organisms born around the same time. So we have the P generation or the parental, and then the F1, offsprings of parents or the first filial generation, and F2 is the first generation of offsprings. Now, let us have the tracking inheritance. We have the so-called Punnett square. Ano ba tinatawag natin na Punnett square na yan? Punnett square is a diagram showing genotype in a test cross. So, ano naman yung tinatawag natin na test cross? Test cross is a Punnett square done to figure out the genotype of an unknown. Always use a homozygous recessive individual with unknown. So, Gregor Mendel do some crosses such as monohybrid and dihybrid cross. Now, what do you think is the difference between these two? Hybrid is the offsprings of a mixed trait. So, when we talk monohybrid cross, it is the mating between individuals that are both heterozygous. So, monohybrid cross involves a cross using a single factor or character traits. Now, what about dihybrid cross? It is the mating between individuals that are heterozygous for two traits or what we call the genes. So, crossing two factors or character traits involves a cross using two factors or character traits. So, yun yung tinatawag natin na dihybrid cross. I hope you understand our lesson. Ang Mendelian Genetics po ay malaki ang contribution sa genetic na nag-aaral tungkol sa heredity, na kung saan pinag-aaralan po dito kung naisasalin ba ang mga traits from parents to offsprings, from generation to generation. Ang pag-aaral na ito ay inumpisahan ni Gregor Mendel gamit ang pea plants. Okay, class, I will send a video, so kindly watch it at your convenient time. A dominant trait like round seed, for example, is represented by capital letter R, and a recessive trait like wrinkled seed is represented by small letter r. As we mentioned earlier, that alleles are pairs. Example are, so dalawang capital R, ano tawag again? Homozygous, pagka dalawang dominant. Kapag ka isang dominant at isang recessive, isa ay capital letter at ang yung isa ay small letter, we call that as heterozygous. Since genes occur in pairs, a pure breeding round seed plant is symbolized as RR, capital RR, and pure breeding wrinkled seed pea plant as small rr. So, yung RR na malaki or yung capital letter is homozygous dominant allele, and the small letter R is homozygous recessive allele. Now that you are through with the lesson, try to group yourself into 3 and answer the following and see for yourself how much you learn in our topic for today. I will give you 5 minutes to answer this. Time's up! Let us check your work. Okay, who wants to answer number 1? Indicate if the following gene pairs are homozygous or heterozygous. Okay, so we have number 1. So, dalawang capital letter A. What is your answer? Okay, correct. Homozygous. Number 2, we have a capital R and a small letter R. What is your answer? Very good. Heterozygous. What about number 3? We have 2 small letter A and big letter B. What is your answer, class? Correct. There are 2 gene pairs. We have AA and BB. So, both are homozygous or heterozygous? Correct. Homozygous. Now, number 4, we have an example of capital M, small letter m, and capital letter N. Okay, so MM is heterozygous and NN is homozygous. Now, you got 5. What about number 5? Very good. Okay. Both are. What about 4? Heterozygous. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm glad that most of you got a perfect score. So, ibig sabihin, naiintindihan nyo naman yung ating lesson for today. Now, kindly copy your assignment. Okay, kindly read. What is the problem? Okay, widow's peak, which is represented by capital letter S, is dominant over straight hairline, small letter S. Given that the mother has heterozygous gene pair for widow's peak and the father has a straight hairline, what is the genotype of the mother? What is the genotype of the father? How many kinds of gametes can the mother and father produce? Okay, kindly list them down. Letter C, perform a cross using a Punnett square. And lastly, give the genotypic ratio of the cross and the phenotypic ratio of the cross. Are you done copying your assignment? Lastly, I want you to write your personal insights about our lesson for today using the prompt below. I understand that blank. I realize that blank. Let us check your insights. Okay, number 1. Who can read your insights? Okay. I understand that using the test cross or what we call the Punnett square, we can predict what will be the phenotypic and genotypic ratio of the offsprings of the parents. What about you, Lynn? You realize that inheritance can be explained in terms of unit determiners called the genes. It is the gene, not the character, that is transmitted from one generation to the next. Okay, that's all for today, class. And before we end our lesson, I want you to reflect about this. Life consists not simply in what heredity and environment do to us, but in what we make out of what they do to us. By Harry Emerson Furtick. Thank you and God bless us all. Credits to the rightful owners. Bye!